Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia, and this is my mother, Ima. Hey, Ima.
Hello, my little sweetness.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Baruch Hashem. So, I was telling you, you called before.
hmm
Um, I was participating in the Great Challah Bake.
Wonderful. Was it like a
It's called the
fundraiser or something? Or
no. It's called the Mega Challah Bake. It's like a unity type thing that I think it started. I know the first one I went to was when your father and I first moved to Florida 4 years ago. I don't know how long ago they started it, but it was a whole idea of Jewish women getting together and um, baking challah, but it was more than that. It was, how can I say, like a spiritual type thing, like a Kabbalistic type thing, that we're not just getting together just to bake. We're getting together because the mitzvah of taking challah dough from the challah and women getting together and participating in the Devar Torah. And then there's one point of the challah bake. There's also entertainment, like what's the whole thing where you come there, you come in and they have like some really nice refreshments. This challah bake was really nice. There was some sushi when you came in, and there were these cakes and these delicious cakes. They were so good. And with every bite, I'm saying to myself, "Oh, I know I shouldn't be doing this. I know I shouldn't be doing this," but it was so delicious. Anyway, so then we come in. They have these metal bowls. They have everything measured out for you in packets, in sealed packets, everything
Mhm.
you need, and a carton of eggs in the middle of the table. And they have a plastic mixing spoon, and you're given this apron. They give you this apron that says Mega Challah on it. And so the the lady in charge, in our case, it was the Rebbetzin of the show, was telling us, guiding us, like how to mix, the yeast and the sugar and the water, and then let it, leave it alone for a couple of minutes, to let the yeast ferment. And during that time, she, spoke about the how Jewish women getting together and doing this mitzvah brings down like these wonderful spiritual energies for the world and for the protection of the Jewish people. And she also talked about how special it is to bake challah, and like she was first, and she asked the crowd, stand up if this is the first time you've ever baked challah in your life. And there were about three women that stood up in the crowd. The crowd, I think, judging from the crowd, it looked like a crowd of about 200 people, 200 women. And then she said, stand up if um, you baked challah with your children.
hmm
And of course, I stood up because I remember what I would do was I would mix all the ingredients, I'd put all the ingredients together in a bowl. And then I would call, I remember Etienne Khani were little, I'd call them in, have them washing in soap and water. And I would say, okay, go to it. And they would just put their hands in the mixture and just start mixing and mixing and mixing. In other words, they were my mix masters. Instead of me having like a KitchenAid with a dough, I would just have my kids wash their hands and just put their hands in the stuff and just mix it, mix it, mix it, mix it. And then one of the things that Team Khani liked to do, that I would have them let them do, is they used to like to make their own little challahs or sculptures or something, that I'd put in the oven and bake for them. And then when it came time to take the hafrish challah, um, of course, the amount of flour they gave us wasn't enough for us to take a hafrish challah from. But the Rebbitzin had a large bag of, like, 5 pound bag of flour. And so she like took the hafrish challah, and then after she said the bracha, she asked everybody for a moment of silence. And she goes, during this time, I want you all to think of anybody who needs a refuah. Think of their names. Think of anybody that needs a shidduch, anybody that wants a child, hasn't had a child yet. And so we did that during the moment of silence. I thought of some friends of mine that I know need a refuah. I thought I thought of a couple of your siblings that need some special brachas.
Of course.
And then we after the dough was all mixed, we covered it, of course, with a cloth. And so during the time that it was rising, there was a woman, Israeli woman, who came and sang and entertained, and we danced. She put on music, and we were doing all these Israeli dances, and they had a sound system, very nice sound system. It sounded like it was really nice. It was like a DJ. It sounded like a live band. It really sounds a very nice sound system they used, and so we were dancing, and we were also singing. And I tell you, it was. She mentioned that I know that there have been some other mega challah bakes around the country also around this time. Basically, it's everyone's getting back into the swing of things after COVID, because for 2 years we couldn't have any big gatherings like this.
Yeah.
And so Baruch Hashem, now we're able to have these big gatherings. I remember the Rebbe used to talk about how powerful it was, that the powerful spiritual energies that are brought down to the earth when Jewish women get together and have these social gatherings with divrei Torah and also with doing certain mitzvahs together, like in our case, doing baking challah together, being yotzid on the bracha hafish challah together. He says that the energies that are drawn down are tremendous. I remember way back in I think it was in 1970, had to be like 1975, I believe it was. I attended the women's convention, Chabad convention in Toronto.
Okay.
And just before we were all supposed to get on the bus and go back to New York, the Rebbe called the convention and said he would like to have the names of every single woman there, her Jewish name and her mother's Jewish name. And so they passed around papers asking everybody in the convention to write their names and their mother's Jewish names. And afterwards, they, I don't know if they faxed it to, I think they might have, I don't know how they must have faxed it into the Rebbe, or they read it to him over the phone. I don't know. But on the way back, there was the road, evidently a snowstorm had come through the area, and the roads, especially if it's very mountainous around there, were treacherous, were just very, very icy. We came across not one, but two, but three accidents, all involving tractor trailers that were now, as we passed by them, were now on their sides at the
Oh
side of the
wow.
road. Yeah.
Jeez. Did you ever bake challah with like your mother or grandmother or anything like that?
No, unfortunately, no. That's my my parent, for some reason, my mother's generation and my grandmother's generation, I don't remember. I don't remember my grandmother or my mother baking challah. No, I don't remember my mother ever baking challah. Um, Never. There was so much. It was really sad in a way. Those two generations, there was a lot that was lost. There was very little Jewish education for women. You had a lot of assimilation,
Hmm.
and you just had I don't know how to say it. You had, like, in the 1940s and 50s especially, you had an entire generation of women that were actually propagandized against breastfeeding their babies.
Really? How come?
Kid you not. The doctors had a whole thing where they said that you don't know how much your baby is getting, your baby doesn't gain weight so quickly. The whole thing was for the babies to gain weight quickly. Um, that the formula is better for them for some reason. And like I said, this whole generation, in my grandmother's day, I was reading about this in a breastfeeding book, that there wasn't a lot of research that was done in those days on really what was involved with breastfeeding. And because of that, they didn't realize it was like many years later, like during this, like the 60s and 70s, was when research was actually done on it. And women, I remember in the 1960s reading articles in magazines saying, what is the best milk for your baby? We know what it is. This one article in particular, we know what it is. It's mother's milk. It was articles were slowly starting to go back to encouraging women to nurse their babies. And my grandmother, she tried to nurse my father, and he was constantly crying. I think there was a few reasons for that. I think, first of all, they thought that when a mother breastfeeds her baby in those days, they'd encourage her to drink milk and
Mhm.
eat a lot of milk products because they
Yeah,
felt.
same thing when I was a kid. There was a whole got milk advertisement that was all over the 90s, I think even early 2000s. It was a whole big thing. The
No,
milk mustache, like that was a
but
whole big.
well, it wasn't just the idea of drinking milk. It was breastfeeding mothers should drink milk. They didn't
Mm,
realize that milk, a breastfeeding mother drinking milk for the first 3 months causes colic in a baby. Actually, causes a baby to causes the milk to be gassy for a baby. You really, for the first 3 months that you're breastfeeding, you really need to refrain from drinking milk or eating milk products for those first 3 months. And they didn't realize. As a matter of fact, I was reading breastfeeding books in the 1980s that I discussed with my nurse midwife, where she was the one that told me about the latest research that I shouldn't be, drinking milk or eating milk products or eating lettuce or tomatoes or cabbage,
mm.
things like that. That's all going to make your milk very gassy. Cucumbers also. As a matter of fact, it's interesting. But Rashi goes into this whole thing when the Jews are leaving Mitzrayim, and they start to yell at Moshe, "Oh, we remember the delicious cucumbers and leeks and melons that we had in Egypt." And Rashi says, those are the foods that are bad for a nursing mother.
Interesting.
And for the first 3 months, you shouldn't have those things. But that wasn't. And so when I pointed this out to my nurse midwife about some of these books, even in the mid 80s, that were still telling women to drink a lot of milk, she said that she felt sorry for the people writing that book because they certainly had not been keeping up with the latest research. So my grandmother, of course, there were a lot of women during the 1930s, like my grandmother, I mean, actually 1920s, like my grandmother, who were nursing their babies. They were told to drink a lot of milk, and the baby was colicky and screaming. So what the doctors would do was the doctors would take a few drops of milk from the woman's nipples, and they would analyze it, like put it under a microscope and analyze it, and they would go, your milk is too thin. You need to
Mm.
put the baby on formula. What they didn't realize is that the best part of the milk and the fattiest part of the milk is just like in a cow. In a cow, the first few drops of milk are not rich. They're very watery. The real good fatty and creamy part of the milk is in the middle to the end of
Ah,
the cow of the milk. And the same thing holds true for human beings. That the best part of the milk is after a while. It's like towards the middle and the end of the baby nursing. But the doctors did not realize that at the time. And I was reading a book about how common this was, because I know this happened to my grandmother, my father's mother, where the doctor told her milk was no good, it was too thin, and he gave her this formula, and he told her to, he gave her. But they didn't actually have in those days. They didn't have um, pre-made formula. They gave you an actual formula that you put together yourself. It was condensed milk with a dropper full of ascorbic acid, and I forgot what else they used, and water.
okay.
So um, so that's what. So my grandmother said when she gave that to my father, he was like a different baby.
Interesting.
But I felt really, very sorry for like my grandmother and people that generation. And then when my mother came along, when my mother, started her family, they had that whole, like I said, that whole propaganda thing against breastfeeding. And of course, most women of her time, I mean, the doctors are supposed to be the experts, and they tell you that this is better for your baby. And you're a new mother, so of course, okay,
Yeah, you
yeah,
listen to doctors.
right.
I think what's funny is because of things like that have happened for so many years, people are getting to a point where they're just not trusting Like I'm gonna get a second opinion. I'm gonna go ahead and figure this stuff out. I'm gonna do things myself and see what I can know for myself, because there's been such a bad history of just doctors being paid off by pharmaceuticals, doctors being paid off by all these companies to push various things, you know. Um, I think there's this there's this talk show guy, John Oliver. I used to watch him back in the day, and he had this whole segment about doctors getting not not necessarily bribes, but they get kickbacks for supporting various drugs, and that you could check online like which doctors do that, and it's open, information. Anybody can find it. And I found that my doctor got kickbacks. I still went to him and dealt with that, but I just take things in stride when a doctor tells me something, you know. But that's again, that's a very dicey road to cross, because it's like now people aren't trusting, vaccines that they need, and that's a whole problem. You're getting all this issues with, like, measles and mumps is coming back, and you see those articles here and there popping up because all these people are afraid of getting vaccinated because of not trusting, the doctors, and then it causes issues in the first place. It's just, I don't know.
Well, I feel this way about it. I am not a non-vaxxer. I made sure your kids got all your vaccinations, because I figure, these the vaccinations that have been administered since World War II, for literally half a century, have proven to be effective. They've proven to be, safe, and they've stood the test of time. And so I think parents that are non-vaxxers are making a very, very serious mistake. The problem is, like, I'm not going to discuss the COVID vaccines. That's not that's for the experts, whatever. I've got my doubt, but I have my own personal doubts about that. But it's funny you should mention about drugs, because I and my coworker today, and one of the parents that I work for, were discussing medicine, that vaccines. We were discussing. It all started the other night. Before I went to sleep, I was really tired, and I wanted to get a really good night's sleep. I've had this. Thank God it's getting better, but I had that coughing virus that's been going around the country. I had it way back in August, and it's gradually, thank God, it's getting better and going away. But I do have a history of asthma, so I have albuterol. And the other night, I didn't want to wake up in the middle of the night coughing. So I decided to, give myself a dose of albuterol before going to sleep. I could not sleep. I was up and up and up. I think I was up so much, and I couldn't understand. I said, it's like how can I say it? I felt anxious.
Mm.
And I was like, why am I so anxious? I'm so tired. I should be falling asleep like a log. I think I got maybe 3 hours of sleep. I finally fell asleep like around 3 in the morning or something like that. So I mentioned to one of the parents who her baby is on albuterol, because he also got the same virus I did, and also has a touch of asthma. So when I mentioned it to her, she goes, "Oh," she goes, "one of the side effects of asthma, I mean of albuterol, is increased heartbeat." I go,
Mm.
"What?" I said, "I wish my doctor had told me not to take this at night, that it's going to keep me up." So we got into a whole discussion of, like, drugs that, well, in my son in particular, I started to tell her about, I have had so many bad experiences with drugs that the only thing I will take will be an antibiotic, because that's serious. I mean, if I've got an infection, if I don't take, if with an infection, if a person doesn't take an antibiotic, God forbid, you could it can be fatal. You have an infection, you've got to get rid of that infection. So an antibiotic I will take. But whenever I have taken any other type of medication other than an antibiotic, it has it has not ended well. It's I could give you a whole list. For first there was my doctor, when I got this virus, said that my nose was, I was waking up in the middle of the night, with these horrible, yep, oh, here's it was. I was about to go um, to your sister's for Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah.
And she was concerned about me being on an airplane with all this congestion, because being on an airplane with congestion, it's going to make it 10 times worse. So she told me to take non-drowsy, what's that called? A non-drowsy decongestant.
Hmm.
So, Claritin D, something along the lines of Claritin D. And so I got one of the cheaper generic ones, D. And to my surprise, you can't buy it you can't buy it on the aisle. You have to pick up a card that shows a picture of it and take it over to the pharmacy counter. And they keep them behind it's still over the counter, but it's kept behind the pharmacist in the pharmacy, and they have to get it for you. And I asked the pharmacist why, and she says evidently there's something that drug addicts do with these type of decongestant, non-drowsy, they're called D
Hmm.
type decongestion
Yeah, they make meth,
congestions.
Ema.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's good to know. So anyway,
Yeah, they make meth.
so
They take
so
it
anyway,
as the source of it and break it down somehow. And yeah.
I did not know that. Okay, I've learned something new every day. So I took it before I went to sleep because I was getting these sinus headaches at night. And lo and behold, I couldn't sleep the entire night.
Hmm.
So I said, okay, so forget this. So then I remember many years ago, not many years ago, but a few years ago when we were moving to Florida,
So
and
about,
your father's health was
oh
starting to
yeah.
deteriorate. I was under a lot of stress.
Hmm.
And I told um, my general practitioner, my internist, about the stress I was under, and he gave me escitalopram, which is an across the board, I guess, like antidepressant type thing, anti-stress, antidepressant. Well, it gave me a panic attack in the middle of the night.
Oh gosh.
And when I woke up in the morning, I was about to call 911. I thought I was having a heart attack. And then something told me, yeah, just try to go back to sleep, which I did. Eventually it passed. I went back to sleep. And in the morning, I thought to myself, maybe I should do something smart, like read the paper that comes with the medicine. I mean, how many people do that, really? So I took out the paper that comes with the medicine, and there it is in black and white. And it says, in a very small minority of people, this medication can cause panic attacks.
You're so special, Ema.
Yes, I am special.
That's so fun. Yeah. Jeez Louise. I'm trying to think of anything that happened to me medically where like nothing I can think of. I think, oh yeah, when I was in seventh grade and I was diagnosed like everybody and their mother with ADHD, and you gave me Adderall, and you were very upset about giving me Adderall, and you decided to give me half the dosage, but you also didn't care if I drank coffee, and I had half a dosage of Adderall with coffee, and I had no idea that whole day I could barely concentrate. I was doing dips in the main secretary's office in front of Mr. Blitz, my army teacher, my teacher who was in the military. I'm like, look what I could do. He's like, oh, that's very impressive, Sadia. Good for you. And like I was just bouncing off the walls. I had no idea that I spoke to you, and like I put two and two together like later on. Like, oh yeah, I remember that time. I just was so wired. I was so wired. And I mean, that's the other thing I find so frustrating, I guess, is like I'm not a parent yet, but God willing, I'll be. And knowing, like how it's gonna be with ADHD, what I want my kids to be medicated so early on. And the frustrating thing I have is that like some kids that I know are diagnosed with ADHD and are taking pills. If this was like the 1700s and like they needed a farm boy to get stuff done, those kids would be the best farm boys, you
Oh
know?
yeah.
And it's just because
Mhm.
we live in a sedentary lifestyle and a sedentary life, it's like all these high energy, high enthusiastic kids are being drugged up to just sit there and be quiet. You
I
know,
think you had a very good point.
it's very
Yeah.
frustrating. But the thing is that like it's a great point, but there's nothing I can do. You know, I could hopefully send our kids to Montessori schools that have more hands-on interactive, education, but eventually they're going to have to go to like a school, high school or a college or a trade school or whatever to like figure out what to do, and they're going to have to learn to sit and do nothing, like not do nothing, but like just sit there most of the day. It's so funny. I was
Mm.
talking to Ruthie yesterday, and we were joking around because we both were very busy, and we were both like, "Oh, I just need to sit down." And we both started laughing because like that's what we do all day. We sit and we work, but then like we want to sit, like the concept of sitting down means you want to like sit somewhere else, or you want to kind of zone out or meditate or do something. Like lucky for me, I'm going to this gym during my lunch hour, so I get more physical activity out. But if it wasn't
Good.
for that gym, I wouldn't be doing anything.
You're
I
right.
think
Right.
I think of Tati, and like he would go on these like half-hour walks and these half-hour, like I wouldn't even call them hikes. He would call them hikes, but like he'd go down by like Milford Mill where there's this like mile hike where there's like no incline and it's really all on like pavement. So like you just walk around there and he'd be like, "Oh, I did my exercise for the day." And I'm like, there's more to do. And for me, it's like it's a little expensive with this gym I'm going to, but in my head, I'm like, it has to be worth it to go to use this gym because
Mhm.
I don't want to pay the piper years down the road where God forbid there's other medical issues. You
I think
know?
you're very. I think it's very, very true, and I think you going to the gym is a very good idea. Now, your brother in New York, guess what he's doing?
What?
He's biking everywhere.
Oh yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah,
got a
yeah.
bike. Yeah, he's. As a matter of fact, he found he can get around quicker on a
Hmm.
bicycle than he can on the subway or the bus. Like he goes to from Crown Heights to Williamsburg,
Oh wow.
he, 10, 15 minutes on a
Oh
bike.
wow.
Couldn't believe it. And going to Manhattan, he timed it. Going to Manhattan on his bike from Crown Heights takes about an hour. On a bus or a subway, takes a little over an hour, like an hour, 15 minutes, something like that.
Oh yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, I one of the wishes I had was like I wish I lived in New York City because first off, I love the city. I love New York. I love the buildings. I enjoy the people. Um, just the interactions. It's just everything about it. Just on some level, I feel like it's very magical. Um, but I only was able to live there for a hot minute. Um, but like, yeah, it's very easy to lose weight there too. There was
Yeah.
an article I was reading a while ago, about this husband and wife where they lived in New York City and they moved to, um, the country, and they realized they started gaining weight. And the reason why they started gaining weight is because when they were in New York in the city, they walked around everywhere. They were
Yeah.
constantly active, you know?
Everything is so close.
Yeah.
Everything. I
Yeah.
remember when your father and I lived in Crown Heights for shopping. I bought all the women for shopping would have these big wheelie carts, those
Hmm.
big, and I would just Thursday afternoon for shopping, and for part of the week, I would just take that wheelie cart and go to Kingston Avenue and go up and down Kingston Avenue, and then go back to our apartment
Yeah.
with the wheelie.
No, I know what you're talking about because like I would have to when I was living in New York, I would have to like run some errands or whatnot. I had a car, but I would barely use my car. It wouldn't be worth
Yeah.
my time, And I loved walking around in the city. I could walk around for hours and like not be, I guess, like tired, you know. But
Well, the first couple of months I lived in New York, after I chalked up $300 worth of parking tickets, I realized that having a car there was a liability, so I just left it in Baltimore.
yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I think there was like there were times where I was living in Muncie and I wanted to go into the city, and it was cheaper for me to go ahead and drive in Muncie to Jersey to the train stop, take the train to Penn State to like Newark to get to Penn Station, and then from Penn Station get off to wherever I need to go, and it was a lot cheaper in the same amount of time. Um, Eventually, sometimes I would take my car because of convenience sake sometimes,
Mhm.
but because of parking and things like that,
Uh,
um,
and I can understand, all the articles you read about New York keep saying that how New York City is losing population. Well, every time I go there, I still drive around for 20 minutes trying to find a parking space. So I don't see where they're losing population.
well, it's just again, this is the thing, and I wanted to talk about it this podcast, but I think we're gonna have to save it for next podcast. Um, it's that like, what is it? How true is the media like pushing various narratives? I wanted to talk about the rise of anti-Semitism in America versus what the media is portraying versus what people are feeling versus what's really happening. Like I think there was like a 6% uptick from like last year
Mhm.
to this year on anti-Semitic uh hate crimes,
Mhm.
and it doesn't seem like a lot, but 6%
Mhm.
of a 2.5% population
Yeah.
of 100% goes 6%. That's kind of actually a large number affecting it. And you have all these celebrities like Kanye West, Kyrie, Dave Chappelle now, like saying different things where it's like Kanye West 100%. I get what he's trying to say. He just got screwed over by his agent and by his manager, and he just used the wrong words. Like, fine. Kyrie, he tried to promote, a video, and it was a very anti-Semitic video, but like their perspective is they don't see the problem. So if you're trying to get someone to see like, hey, what you're doing is not right, like, come on. Like what Dave Chappelle did, I don't know. I personally love comedy. I've been a fan of Dave Chappelle since like I was in high school, and I'm watching his routine and trying to find any nuance, any issues, and there might be something here and there, but like he's done this kind of act on multiple different levels on different people, so it's not necessarily him, but the thing is, it's not really about these celebrities. It's about the followers that want to
Mhm.
do something and finally feel like they have a voice. Like whether
Mhm.
Kyrie and Dave Chappelle and Kanye West weren't trying to be anti-Semitic and did whatever, then did their own thing. Fine, that's great. I'll let you have that. But their followers are not saying that, though. A cemetery in Chicago, I think yesterday, just got vandalized with "Kanye was right"
Mhm.
and Nazi symbols. There was in Bethesda, Maryland. There was a bunch of neo-Nazi spray paint and like statements saying "kill all the Jews" and "torture the Jews" or something like that. And
Mhm.
that happened a couple of days ago as well. So like these things are increasing more and more, and you got to ask yourself, like, when is it that we go? When do we leave? When do we really
Something?
say it's
It's
time?
interesting you brought that up because that I don't know, that has always been in the back of my mind because Jewish history, that it's a pattern. We go into a country, we we do very, we really do very well in that country. We blossom, we contribute a lot to that particular country, and then it's like, and then we like get spat out.
Yes.
Anti-Semitism comes along, and it's like we get like I said, spat out, like thrown out. And even before I became from, even I think when I was even in junior high school, I remember one time my mother and I having like an argument, and my mother was from the generation of, oh, you want to fit in, it's a Christian country, and we need to fit in, and yada yada, and don't make waves. And finally I just said to her, look, I said, we're just going to be here as long as the goyim want us here, and when they don't want us here, we're out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I was like 13 or 14 when I said that. I had that feeling.
And that's very
Like,
true.
when's it gonna happen again? When's it gonna be our turn now to get out?
And honestly, I'm kind of seeing it where like the time is coming close. Like I don't know what the damage is going to be. I don't know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
And the thing is, I see why people got screwed over in Germany because like we have like I have a house, I have a wife, I have a career here. Am I just going to leave because I feel kind of uncomfortable with what's going on right now? Like I'm going to throw everything out because I have
Mhm.
some gut feeling. Like I don't know. Like when do we leave? And it's going to be like it's going to take either like a real big impact of something of some sort for us to be like, okay, we got to go,
I think you're right.
and I think is that like
Mhm.
we're going to be reactionary, and the scary part is that like how reactionary is it going to be, and what's the impact, and me or my loved ones are going to survive? Like that's the question. Like, are
Mhm.
we going to survive this? And
Yes.
like I'm looking at everything right now, like what the like what is going on here? Um, it's like
Mhm.
fine, okay, I'll take it. Let's like the frustrating thing I had was like all these Jewish celebrities, are like defending these other celebrities that are saying like semi anti-Semitic whatever things. They're like we should have a conversation. Like Jon Stewart and Jerry Seinfeld, they were asked about the Dave Chappelle thing, and they're like, it wasn't anti-Semitic, but we should have a conversation.
What is that? What exactly did Chappelle say?
He had a whole routine, and if I say it now, it's not going to do it justice. I'll
Okay.
send you the whole routine. You'll listen to it yourself. You'll make your own decision. I
Because I'll
thought it
tell you
was
the truth,
funny.
I think I like James Chappelle. I think he's funny, and
Yeah,
I think he's very funny. And as a matter of fact, I remember when he first came on the scene with this type of ethnic humor, a lot of black leaders were very angry about it. And Dave Chappelle said, "Look, if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at?"
exactly. And Dave Chappelle on numerous occasions has always tiptoed that line and has always made those things, which is fine, and I love it. And he's tiptoeing lines with Judaism. Great, go right ahead. I think it's funny. I was laughing the whole time twice. And the thing is that like now, because it's just a really rough climate, like people are like on both sides are looking for something to latch onto. Anti-Semites are trying to find someone who's like, okay, I'll latch onto you. Like, I'm not trying to be too political, and I know this is going to be ridiculous, but like Trump wasn't a racist anti-Semite, whatever. What happened was he said various things, the media misconstrued it, they made it into something bigger, and then the racists and anti-Semites latched onto it, and then it became a whole
Hmm.
big thing on itself. It's like the
Hmm.
media, makes money off of anti-Semitism and racism, and they like amping it up because they get better ratings and they make more money.
Well,
So
go ahead. Well, I was watching on YouTube. It's Rabbi, what's his name? Henry Abrams. He's the one that has these videos on Jewish history,
yeah,
and he was talking about anti-Semitism, and he said what got him very, very concerned was when Shopsy Baron Cohen went into that bar in, was it? I think it was someplace in the Midwest,
mm-hmm.
and Shopsy Baron Cohen purposely did this to show everybody, you Americans think you're so accepting, think you're so liberal. Let me show you what's really
Oh,
going
Sacha
on.
Baron Cohen, you said Sacha
Yeah,
Baron Cohen.
I'm sorry, right, Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah,
So remember when he went to that bar and he was playing guitar and he sang that
throw the
song,
Jude in the well. Yeah,
down the well? Yeah,
yeah,
and how the people in the bar started singing along with him.
yes, and that was a long time ago. So the thing is that we're not seeing something that's new. This has been happening for a long time. All right, so we're almost out of time. Maybe we'll continue this conversation next episode. But I love you, man. Stay safe.
Love you. Have a safe Shabbos. Love you,
You
guys.
too.
Bye bye.
All right, bye bye. Thank you for listening to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. Please send us feedback and comments on our Facebook page and like and subscribe on YouTube. I know I would like it, and my mother would too.